Hello everyone. How are you doing today? I truly hope you're all well. As always, we're about to dive into a moving story that will tug at your heartstrings, test your patience, and perhaps even make you angry. This is the tale of a wife who made an immense sacrifice and was repaid only with betrayal. Imagine a woman who worked non-stop for 7 long years, funding her husband's education until he finally graduated from medical school. But what did she receive on his graduation day? Instead of gratitude, she got divorce papers. Her husband arrogantly told her, "We're not on the same level anymore. I'm ashamed to have such an ordinary wife as you." After the divorce, the woman vanished without a trace. But a year later, her ex-husband, now a doctor, was in a panic and began a desperate search. What happened to her? Before we continue, please hit the like button and tell us in the comments what city you're watching us from. It's very important for us to know how far our stories travel. Thank you so much. And now, without further delay, let's begin. That morning, loud applause echoed throughout the immense auditorium of Howard University in Washington, D.C. Among the jubilant families sat Aisha Baker, her heart overflowing. She subtly wiped away the tears welling up in her eyes and looked towards the stage. There stood her husband, Marcus Holloway, in his gown and academic cap, holding the medical degree the dean had just handed him. 7 years. 7 years of waiting, sacrifice, and incredible effort had finally paid off. Aisha smiled genuinely. Though her smile was slightly strained from overwhelming exhaustion, she glanced at her slightly roughened hands. Hands that hadn't known a manicure or a rest day in 7 years. With these hands, she had kneaded dough at dawn to bake for local coffee shops in the Utah Street corridor and worked late into the night typing reports. And with these same hands, she had massaged Marcus back when he complained of fatigue after endless nights of studying. Aisha worked 2 jobs. She had sold her mother's jewelry and suppressed all her own desires for one dream to see Marcus in a white coat. Beside her, Marcus's mother, Rhonda Holloway, was practically beaming with pride. "My Marcus is a real doctor now," Rhonda declared to one of the guests, accepting congratulations. Dressed in an expensive designer suit with her hair perfectly styled, she briefly glanced at Aisha, who wore a simple dress. Rhonda had long made it clear that she disliked Aisha. Aisha came from a humble family and, in her mother-in-law's opinion, was completely unsuitable for her son's brilliant future. But Aisha paid no mind. Marcus's love had been enough for her. The ceremony concluded. Marcus approached them with a broad smile, though the smile seemed mostly directed at his mother. He hugged Rhonda tightly. "I did it, Mom." "Of course you did, son," she replied proudly. "I always knew you were special." Aisha stepped forward to hug her husband. "Congratulations, darling." Marcus's embrace was strained, and he quickly pulled away. "Yeah, thanks. Tonight, we're going to that new upscale steakhouse downtown. I booked a table. We're celebrating," he said without even meeting her eyes. Aisha's heart sank at his coolness, but she tried to excuse him. Maybe he's tired. Maybe he's overwhelmed with emotion. "Of course, honey. Whatever you say," she replied gently. That evening, the 3 of them sat in the luxurious restaurant overlooking the glittering nighttime Washington Monument area. Aisha felt like an outsider. It was the most expensive place she had ever been. She looked at Marcus now in a costly dress shirt. He looked confident, as if he'd never doubted himself. Rhonda kept taking pictures of her son to post online. "Honey, our efforts have finally paid off." Aisha attempted to start a warm conversation. "We can start a new life." Hearing this, Rhonda laughed loudly. "You mean his efforts? My son is a tireless worker, and now he's a doctor. Naturally, his life will be new. He deserves the very best." Aisha remained silent. She waited for Marcus to defend her to say it was their combined effort, but he stayed quiet, simply flipping through the menu. When they placed their orders, a brief silence fell. Marcus cleared his throat and looked at Aisha coldly. "I need to tell you something." Yes, darling, she answered nervously. Marcus opened a new leather folder and pulled out a brown envelope, placing it in front of her. Aisha frowned. What is it, honey? A job offer from a hospital. Beside her, Rhonda smiled haughtily, and a chill ran down Aisha's spine. No, open it, Marcus ordered. Aisha's hands trembled. She tore open the envelope, read the first lines of the official document, and the world seemed to stop. The noise of the restaurant vanished. Clearly written on the white page were the words, Petition for dissolution of marriage. Aisha looked up, shaking. Marcus, this is some kind of joke. What does this mean? It's your graduation day. Marcus sighed heavily. His face was hard, as if the mask of joy he'd worn all day had finally dropped. I'm serious, Aisha. We can't be together anymore. But why? What did I do wrong? For 7 years, Aisha's voice broke. Exactly. Marcus interrupted sharply. 5 years is long enough. I'm a doctor now. I have a brilliant future ahead of me. I need a woman who is on my level. Someone I won't be ashamed to bring to important functions. Someone who matches my status. He looked Aisha up and down, sizing up her simple dress and tired, makeup-free face. We're not on the same level anymore. I'm ashamed to have such an ordinary wife. These words hit Aisha like a lightning bolt on a clear day. Her head spun. Such cruel phrases came from the person she had supported and cared for all those years. Rhonda Holloway stepped into the conversation, her voice triumphant. Did you hear that, Aisha? Marcus has different standards now. You should have known your place all along. It's better for you both to separate now before you become a burden and an embarrassment to him in the medical community. Consider the money you earned as charity. Aisha's contained tears finally broke through, not as drops, but as a torrent. Pain, humiliation, and betrayal tore at her heart. She looked at Marcus, trying to find the man she had once loved, but before her stood only an arrogant stranger. Then she turned her gaze to Rhonda, who was smiling with obvious relish. Aisha bit her lip, suppressing a sob. She wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing her broken. Her hand shook so violently that she crumpled the divorce petition. The word charity that Rhonda had thrown at her landed on her heart like a burning ember on dry coal. Something inside Aisha cracked, but it didn't break. Instead, it turned to steel. Her tears stopped instantly. She slowly raised her head and looked at the two of them. Her gaze, which a minute ago was full of pain and confusion, became cold, hard, and impenetrable. She fiercely wiped away the remaining tears. It was no longer a gesture of desperation. It was the movement of a person who had made a decision. Marcus and Rhonda were stunned by her sudden change. They had expected Aisha to cry, beg, perhaps even pass out. Instead, Aisha sank into a terrible, icy silence. Enough. The word was rough from suppressed tears, but firm and final. I said enough, Aisha. Repeated, looking directly into her mother-in-law's eyes. And now, for the first time, doubt flickered in Rhonda's gaze. You said I should know my place, that my sacrifices were charity, that I'm a burden. Aisha laughed quietly, a short, cold, mocking sound. The laugh made Marcus shudder. Did you really think I'd let you wipe your feet on me? She turned to Marcus, who now looked tense and confused. And you, Marcus Holloway? The way she emphasized Marcus sounded like a slap. You say you're a doctor now, that this degree is yours. You are deeply mistaken. Aisha slowly rose. Every movement was calm, but filled with sting rage. Her hand, the one that had crumpled the petition, pointed directly at Marcus' visibly pale face. This degree is mine, too. Her voice suddenly rose, startling Marcus, Rhonda, and even a few patrons. But Aisha didn't care. Every dollar that brought you to this graduation is my blood, sweat, and tears, she shouted. Every book you bought is a meal I didn't eat. Every exam you calmly studied for, I met the dawn baking so I could make my deliveries. She jabbed her finger into his chest. You took my body, my energy, my life for 7 years to buy this degree. Her breathing grew heavy, rage boiling inside. You said I'm not on your level. She laughed again, louder. You're right. I'm not on the level of a coward who betrays his wife on his graduation night. Then she turned to Rhonda. And I'm certainly not on the level of a mother who applauds her son's betrayal for the sake of status. Aisha grabbed her simple purse and articulated every word. You will both regret this. Marcus, insulted and humiliated in public, the newly graduated doctor jumped up. His face flushed with rage and shame. Aisha, sit down. Don't make a scene. What do you want to divide assets? We have nothing. Did you forget all your money went to my tuition? But Aisha smiled, and the smile sent a chill through Marcus. Did you think I was that naive, honey? She pulled out her phone, completely ignoring the surrounding stares. Marcus froze. He couldn't imagine Aisha knowing anything. Aisha quickly dialed a number. Kenneth, good evening. I apologize for calling so late. Marcus frowned. Attorney Markham? Who is that? He wondered suspiciously. Rhonda, who had been arrogant just moments ago, went pale. Aisha completely ignored them. Yes, this is Aisha. Our suspicions were confirmed. Yes, Kenneth, I received the notification tonight. Everything is exactly as we expected, just as you predicted. Continue with the process. Her tone was so assured, so chillingly calm that Marcus and Rhonda Holloway instantly tensed up. Start the process with the documents I left at your office last week. Immediately, Aisha stated firmly. Yes, everything, including the counterclaim for betrayal and fraud. And most importantly, attach the full calculation of the claim for 7 years of his tuition and living expenses. Serve the subpoena to the hospital address where he is due to start working next week as quickly as possible. At the words calculation of claim, Rhonda shot up. Her perpetually arrogant face turned white. A counterclaim? What loss, Aisha? Don't make things up. Are you crazy? Do you want to blackmail my son? She screamed in panic. Aisha calmly ended the call, put the phone in her purse, and looked at Rhonda with an icy, almost indifferent gaze. I'm not crazy. I'm simply demanding what's mine. You yourself said it was an investment. Excellent. I want all my investment back. I have every bank transfer, every tuition receipt, even the utility bills for all 7 years. Then she turned to Marcus, who was sitting paralyzed. Did you truly think you could just walk away, start a new life, and find a wife on your level thanks to the degree I bought with my blood and tears? You are terribly mistaken. Aisha picked up the divorce petition from the table in front of Marcus and Rhonda. She didn't tear it. She folded it neatly and put it in her purse. This will be excellent supplemental evidence in court. Thank you. I won't sign your divorce, she said firmly, but I will file for divorce myself. I'll make you pay for every drop of my effort, even before you get a chance to wave that white coat around. Without another word, Aisha walked out of the expensive restaurant with a steady stride, leaving Marcus and Rhonda staring at the costly dishes they hadn't touched. That night, Aisha didn't shed a single tear. The rage had burned everything away, leaving only steely resolve. Her steps were light, yet each one seemed to leave a scorching mark on the cold marble floor. She crossed the lobby, ignoring the surprised looks of the staff who had seen her arrive accompanied and leave alone. Hailing a cab, she gave the address of Maria Lance's studio apartment in Brooklyn, her only friend in the city. The entire ride, Aisha sat motionless. The lights of the big city, which should have been part of a celebration, now felt like a cruel mockery. Again and again, Marcus' arrogant face and Rhonda's poisonous smile flashed before her eyes. We're not on the same level anymore. The phrase hammered in her head like a rusty nail. Aisha gripped her phone tighter. It held Attorney Markham's number. This humiliation wouldn't be an end. It would be a beginning. When Maria, groggy with sleep, opened the door of her small studio, her eyes widened instantly. Aisha, what are you doing here at this hour? Weren't you supposed to be celebrating his graduation? Aisha walked inside without a word. As soon as the door closed, her legs gave way and she leaned against the wall. He filed for divorce. "Maria," she said hoarsely, "tonight at the restaurant." "What?" Maria flared up. "That's a joke. That can't be happening." Aisha recounted everything. Marcus's arrogance, Rhonda's insults, the divorce petition. Her voice trembled. "That scum," Maria whispered, clenching her fists. "And his mother is no better." Aisha pulled away from the hug and wiped her eyes. "I already called Attorney Markham." Maria's eyes went wide. "An attorney? Since when?" Aisha looked down. "For 6 months. Ever since I noticed Marcus changing. Ever since I found proof he was transferring money to another account behind my back. I just needed the final confirmation. And tonight he gave it to me." A few weeks later, the mediation room at the family court was tense. Aisha Baker, in a simple but impeccable dress, sat straight with an unmoving face. Beside her, Attorney Kenneth Markham laid out a thick case file. Across from them, Marcus Holloway and Rhonda sat like nervous stones. Marcus, who was due to start his job at a prestigious hospital in a few days, looked haggard. Rhonda kept whispering something pale as the wall. The subpoena prepared by Attorney Markham, which included the counterclaim and the calculated damages of $50 million. $50 million had destroyed their joy and their plans. The mediator started the session, but before Marcus or his new lawyer could open their mouths, Markham calmly stated, "Thank you for your time. Aisha Baker is present to respond to Marcus Holloway's petition. However, we reject that petition." Marcus looked up stunned. "What do you mean you reject it?" he asked, confused. "We reject it," Attorney Markham repeated calmly, "because the petition for divorce will be filed by my client, and it has already been filed." He handed the mediator a stack of documents. Aisha's divorce petition, citing adultery, financial fraud, and psychological distress. "This is liable," Rhonda Holloway shrieked. "Stop making up falsehoods." But Markham didn't even look in her direction. "We have also attached a claim for reimbursement of tuition and living expenses which my client covered for 7 years to fund Marcus Holloway's medical education." He opened the file. "Here is detailed proof, regular biannual transfers, receipts for books, practice materials, housing payments, and a calculation of daily living expenses that Aisha Baker transferred to Marcus Holloway's account. The total sum amounts to $50 million. Marcus turned so pale, he looked as if all the blood had drained from him. $50 million, an amount his starting salary wouldn't cover even in several years. Rhonda gasped in a choking fit. Their own lawyer merely swallowed, seeing the flawless evidence. This is blackmail." Marcus exhaled, his voice trembling with a mixture of fury and fear. "It was a wife's obligation. Aisha, are you out of your mind?" Aisha, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. She looked directly at Marcus. "A wife's obligation, you say? The wife you called unworthy? The one you were ashamed of? The one you abandoned on your graduation night?" Her voice was level but sharp as a blade. "I'm perfectly sane, Marcus. I'm simply taking back what belongs to me." A suffocating silence hung in the room. Neither Marcus nor Rhonda could object in the face of such evidence. Aisha gave Markham a barely perceptible nod. He nodded back, and his next sentence made both Holloway's jump. "My client is a generous woman. She does not wish to drag out this process." Aisha looked straight at Marcus, unblinking. "I will drop the $50 million claim." Marcus and Rhonda's jaws dropped. But under several conditions, Aisha quickly added, "First, you accept my divorce petition, and the reason must be stated in full: betrayal and abandonment. I want my dignity back. Second, no division of assets. I will take nothing from that house, and you have no right to demand anything from me. We are ending this peacefully. Third, you sign a document stating that neither you nor your mother will ever contact me or my family again. Fourth, everything concludes today. No appeals, no delays." Marcus looked at Rhonda, Pale with fear of debt? She instantly nodded. Fine, fine. Sign it, Marcus, she whispered, trembling. Pride meant nothing against the possibility of losing their home. With shaking hands, simultaneously humiliated and relieved, Marcus signed the papers. The divorce was finalized almost instantly. The bang of the mediator's gavel, and Aisha was officially free. She walked out of the courthouse without looking back. Marcus remained sitting, slumped over, while Rhonda quietly wept with relief that the debts were no longer hanging over them. Later that day, Aisha packed her last belongings into an old suitcase in Maria Lance's studio. She had sold her remaining jewelry and gathered enough money to start a new life. Aisha, that $50 million was yours, Maria exclaimed, perplexed. You could have bought yourself a condo. Aisha closed the suitcase. I don't want it, Maria. If I take that money, I'll remain tied to that pain. It's dirty money. Money stained with humiliation. To me, that $50 million is the price of a very expensive life lesson, and I'm not going to repeat it. So, where are you going now? Maria asked. Aisha smiled. It was the first sincere smile in weeks. I'm picking up my dream, the one I abandoned. I'm going back to college. I want to write. I still have a brain, Maria, and I have ambitions. She took Maria by the shoulders. I'm leaving this city. I'll vanish from Marcus and his mother's life and channel all this pain into something big. One day they'll hear my name and realize who truly wasn't on whose level. She hugged Maria tightly. Take care of yourself and don't tell anyone where I am. I won't, Aisha. Go live your dream. Make them regret it, Maria said. That night, Aisha went to the bus terminal. She deliberately chose a small, distant town, a place where no one knew her. As the bus left the glittering DC that had brought her so much pain, Aisha looked out the window. She didn't cry. She felt only profound relief. She left with one suitcase, years of unpaid sacrifice, and a firm promise to herself. 1 year passed. On the 15th floor of a prestigious private hospital in Manhattan, a young man walked with a confident stride. His white coat was perfectly pressed. An expensive stethoscope hung around his neck, not just as a tool, but as a symbol of prestige. His badge read, Dr. Marcus Holloway. He was the new surgical prodigy, smart, quick, and self-assured. Despite his young age, he was trusted with complex operations. His superiors admired him. Nurses watched him pass, and colleagues considered him an example. Marcus had achieved everything he wanted. Life with Aisha had become a hazy, almost non-existent memory. Sometimes he didn't even remember her name. And when he did, he considered it a disgrace, a stepping stone he had to crush to rise higher. Divorcing Aisha was the best decision, he told himself, looking in the mirror of his luxurious penthouse in the financial district. To him, Aisha had been a burden. Now he was free and enjoying that freedom to the fullest. He no longer lived in the small apartment he inherited from his father. Now he and Rhonda occupied an expensive penthouse in the heart of New York City. The mortgage was suffocating him, but it didn't matter. Status was everything. He replaced his old motorcycle with a black Mercedes-Benz E-Class, leased for 7 years at insane interest rates. His residence salary wasn't enough for the lifestyle he wanted to project to the world. Every weekend, he dined at expensive restaurants, bought designer watches and clothes, and joined an elite country club. He was the perfect portrait of success, but behind the facade, a mountain of debt was growing. Marcus juggled 5 credit cards and took out new bank loans, justifying it as renovations for the penthouse. His arrogance completely infected Rhonda, who now proudly repeated, "My son is a doctor." Her new status drew her into a circle of wives of businessmen and high-ranking officials. At every gathering, she repeated the same thing. "Oh, my dear Marcus, he's constantly doing major surgeries. He only got home at 3 o'clock in the morning yesterday," she boasted, stirring her expensive tea at a luxury hotel. She knew perfectly well Marcus was delayed not by surgery, but by a party at an exclusive club. Poor me. But what can I do? It's his calling. He's just so dedicated to his profession. The new penthouse, you ask? She continued, answering her own question. Yes, it's modest. 3 bedrooms overlooking the city. Marcus insisted I move. Said I should live in comfort in my old age. Such a caring son. While she chattered endlessly, she put more and more pressure on Marcus to find a suitable partner quickly. But a few days later at a meeting, Marcus was leading for young doctors. Something unexpected happened. He was speaking confidently, pointing at the presentation screen when he suddenly felt a sharp dizziness. His vision swam, and he grabbed the edge of the table to keep from falling. "Dr. Holloway, are you all right?" a young doctor asked, seeing his boss suddenly turn pale. Marcus straightened up, clearing his throat. "I'm fine, just tired. Too many surgeries. Let's continue." He ignored the strange throbbing in his temples. Probably a migraine, he thought. Lack of sleep and too much coffee. But the migraine started happening more frequently. A few days later, eating lunch in the hospital cafeteria, still arrogant and complaining about the food, he suddenly noticed the hand holding his fork trembled slightly, only for a couple of seconds, but it was enough to make his heart drop. What was that? He clenched his fist under the table, trying to stop the tremor. He blamed the air conditioning. But that evening, the symptom returned with fury in his luxurious penthouse. He had just gotten out of a hot shower and was about to leave for a dinner. Rhonda had organized to introduce him to a woman named Jean. Standing in front of the large mirror, adjusting his expensive tie, he felt the world around him tilt. A sharp pain pierced his head like 1,000 needles, simultaneously plunging into his skull. His vision blurred and his ears rang. He stumbled and hit the dresser. Expensive cologne bottles scattered across the floor. What's happening?" he whispered, clutching his burning head. He collapsed, unable to breathe. Cold sweat drenched his forehead and shirt. As a doctor, he understood instantly this wasn't fatigue or migraine. But his ego refused to accept the truth. The great Dr. Holloway couldn't be sick at the peak of his career. He struggled to the medicine cabinet, pulled out 2 strong painkillers and swallowed them without water. After 15 minutes, the pain began to recede. A dull, throbbing remained, but he could stand. He looked at his reflection in the cracked mirror. His face was deathly pale. The phone rang. It was Rhonda. "Marcus, where are you? Jean and her family are waiting. Don't you dare embarrass your mother." Marcus took a deep breath, gathering his last reserves of strength. "Yes, Mom. I'm on my way." "Traffic," he lied. He smoothed his hair in the mirror, though his body was still shaking. Nearby lay a pile of credit card statements and car payments. All that luxury suddenly seemed cold and frightening. "No, it's fine," he muttered. "I just need rest. Everything will be back to normal." He grabbed the keys to the black Mercedes and left, once again, putting on his mask of success and arrogance. But the mask didn't last long. A few days after the dizziness in the penthouse, the symptom returned at the worst possible moment, right in the operating room. He was about to perform a simple appendectomy, a surgery he could do in his sleep. He scrubbed, put on sterile gloves, and asked for the scalpel. And then his hand trembled, barely noticeable at first. But within seconds the tremor became violent. The scalpel nearly fell from his fingers. "Doctor!" the assistant carefully murmured, looking at him with alarm. Time stood still. Marcus stared at his own hand in horror. He couldn't control it. Cold sweat beaded on his temples. "The glove is wrong. Take it off." He tried to excuse himself, but when he tried to remove the glove, the shaking grew even worse. The nurse and assistant exchanged worried glances. The star surgeon, known for his precision, was trembling as if he were in a deep freeze. "Dr. Holloway, are you sure you're okay?" the assistant asked, genuinely concerned now. "I said, I'm fine," Marcus snapped, though he knew perfectly well he couldn't continue. Take over, he ordered abruptly. Sudden spasm. He tossed the scalpel onto the tray and hurried out of the operating room, leaving the team utterly bewildered. In the hallway, he tore off his mask and cap, leaning against the wall, breathing heavily. This wasn't fatigue, stress, or a migraine. This was something that could destroy his career, his pride, his future. His whole life depended on the steadiness of his hands, and those very hands were now betraying him. Marcus, you're a respected doctor now. Don't repeat your mistake with that wife. Find a woman on your level. Professor Kagan's daughter is beautiful and went to school in Switzerland. Or Jean, the chief physician's daughter from the neighboring hospital. Remember, marriage is a social investment for your career. Rhonda repeated almost every day. Marcus just nodded, savoring his status as the most desirable bachelor. His days were filled with ostentatious wealth and debt. That evening, he secretly booked an appointment after hours for 9:00 p.m. when the clinic was closed. Swallowing his pride, he headed to the office of the chief of neurology, Dr. Nicholas Bell, an experienced, calm, and incredibly dedicated physician. These were the kind of people Marcus considered old-fashioned. Ironically, his fate now rested in the hands of exactly such a doctor. "Well, Marcus, what's going on?" Bell asked calmly when he saw Marcus walk in, almost creeping. Marcus had left his white coat in the car and entered like any ordinary patient. "I have strange symptoms. My hands shake and my vision often blurs." Dr. Bell listened carefully. His face remained serene as he performed a few basic neurological tests. "Lie down. Follow the light. Close your eyes. Relax." Each command was a slap to his pride. The great doctor had become an obedient patient. Finishing the examination, Bell looked serious. "We need to do an MRI of your brain and spinal cord tomorrow morning." The next day, Marcus underwent all the tests, torn between fear and denial. He waited for the results in the office, pacing back and forth like a caged lion. Meanwhile, Rhonda called him several times, complaining about why he hadn't taken her to dinner at the Plaza Hotel. "What's the point of my life if I have a successful doctor, son?" she grumbled. "I'm busy, Mom," he snapped, hanging up. The phone rang again. It was Dr. Bell. "The results are ready. You can come to my office." Marcus felt a cold dread inside. He walked heavily into the experienced doctor's office. The results of his MRI were displayed on the large screen behind the desk. Dr. Nicholas Bell didn't waste time. "Marcus, sit down. Look here." He pointed to several abnormal white spots on the spinal cord and optic nerve. "It's not a tumor and it's not a stroke." "Then what is it?" Marcus whispered, his voice trembling. "It's an autoimmune disease, rare and very aggressive." Marcus' world collapsed. The doctor continued, "Treatment here will only slow the process. It won't reverse the damage already done. And given that your profession is surgery, we need a radical solution." What solution? "Tell me." Marcus leaned forward. "A hematopoietic stem cell transplant. It will reboot your immune system. It's the only chance you'll ever be able to hold a scalpel again." Hope flashed in Marcus's eyes. "Okay, let's do it. When can we schedule the surgery?" Dr. Bell sighed heavily. "That's where it gets complicated. This procedure isn't widely covered in the US for your diagnosis. You'll have to go abroad, maybe Singapore or Germany." Marcus' heart started pounding again, fast and heavy. "And how much does it cost?" A preliminary estimate for all procedures, stay and recovery is around $150 million. $150 million. The sum crashed down on him like an invisible hammer. He didn't have even a tiny fraction of that money. All his income went toward the black Mercedes, the mortgage for the luxurious penthouse, Rhonda's credit cards, and maintaining the fake image of a lavish life. "What about insurance?" Marcus asked, clinging to one last chance. The doctor opened another folder. "Your professional insurance only covers registered severe diseases. Your diagnosis is considered rare, and transplantation for such autoimmune diseases is still considered experimental. The maximum they will cover is diagnostics and initial treatment here, about $15 million. Marcus shook his head. Impossible. This can't be, he whispered and laughed dryly as if crying. The great Dr. Holloway, the surgeon, the man who told his wife she wasn't on his level, was now completely broken, facing a disease that could leave him blind and paralyzed. He nearly ran out of the office. Reaching the penthouse, he saw Rhonda sitting in the lavish living room in front of the television. Marcus, finally, I ordered an expensive dinner with your card. Let's eat. He looked at her with an empty gaze. I'm sick, Mom, he whispered. Sick? A cold. I told you it's not a cold. Marcus exploded, completely breaking down. I'm seriously ill. I need surgery abroad. It costs $150 million. The fork in Rhonda's hand fell onto the porcelain plate. $150 million? Where will we get that kind of money? We just made the first payment on your new car. This isn't a joke, Mom. Marcus screamed as if he were shattering into pieces. I might go blind. I might end up paralyzed. My career is over, and we don't have any money. We have nothing. We're ruined, Mom. Ruined. That night, in the luxurious penthouse with 20 years of mortgage payments ahead, the arrogant Dr. Holloway cried for the first time like a child. Not because of the disease, but because he realized he didn't have a single dollar to save his life and his dignity. Panic gripped the two of them in that enormous yet empty home. Marcus' cry, "We're ruined," echoed through the penthouse, bouncing off the imported marble and the expensive furniture they still hadn't paid for until it drowned in unbearable silence. Rhonda, pale and trembling, was the first to break it, and not with sympathy. No, no, this can't be, she whispered, her voice cracking. She didn't look at Marcus, who sat motionless on the floor. Her gaze wandered around the room. The expensive abstract painting, the crystal chandelier, the massive television. We can't be ruined, Marcus. This penthouse, your car, my bags, all of this. Marcus laughed bitterly. That's the problem, Mom. All of this is an illusion. He stood up and kicked the glass coffee table, which scraped across the marble floor. This penthouse is a 20-year mortgage, and we've only made 10 payments. It's worth far less than we owe the bank. If we sell it, we'll still owe millions. And that Mercedes you boast about to your elite circle, Marcus added with a bitter smirk. Rhonda kept shaking her head, unwilling to accept reality. That car, Marcus ran a hand over his face. It's a 7-year lease, Mom, with interest rates so high it's suffocating. If we sell it, the proceeds won't even cover the remaining debt. We have nothing, only debt. Debt everywhere. Rhonda gasped. She thought of the designer bags stuffed in her closet. Her chest tightened. Almost half of them were high-quality fakes bought to impress her elite circle without spending Marcus money. They had been living a lie. Then what are we going to do? She whispered. $150 million. Rhonda collapsed onto the expensive sofa. My friends, my circle, Maria, the banker's wife, Svetlana, the real estate mogul's wife. They'll definitely help. They won't let a friend suffer. A small spark of hope ignited in her eyes. Rhonda grabbed her phone with shaking hands. She called Maria. Hello, Rhonda. What's wrong at this hour? A cheerful voice answered. Darling, darling, please, you must help me. Rhonda instantly burst into tears. It's Marcus. He's very sick. He needs surgery. It costs $150 million. Please lend me the money. A short pause. The cheerfulness vanished. $150 million? Goodness, Rhonda, that's too much. I'm sorry, but my husband is at an international meeting right now. I can't bother him. And I'm terribly busy with a charity event. I'll call you back later, Rhonda. Click. The call ended. Rhonda froze, disbelieving. She tried again, busy. She called Svetlana. Rejection. She called a third person. Rejection again. She called Clara. Oh, Rhonda, we need money for renovations too. Terrible timing. All the friends who had praised her before were now avoiding her like the plague. Rhonda hurled the phone onto the sofa. Liars. Snakes. Marcus looked at her with disgust. Do you get it now? They're only your friends when you have something to boast about, just like my colleagues. Now it was his turn. He couldn't rely on his mother. He had to act himself, even if his pride resisted. He took a deep breath and started calling colleagues. Hello, Frederick. Sorry to call so late. It was Frederick Carson, a surgeon. Ah, doctor. Holloway, what's up? Everything okay? Marcus swallowed. Listen, Frederick, an extremely lucrative real estate investment came up abroad. I urgently need liquid cash. Something between $40 and $90 million. Can you help? A soft, mocking chuckle sounded on the other end. Well, Dr. Holloway playing the big leagues now, are you? With your new Mercedes and penthouse, you must know more about money than I do. Sorry, doctor. I just made the first down payment on my son's house. I'm broke. Good luck with your investment. Click. The call ended. Marcus let out a choke sound. Everyone thought he was rich. What an irony. The arrogance he had built up all year was now boomeranging back at him. No one wanted to help. He called 2 more doctors. The answer was the same. Sorry, doctor. No money right now. In desperation, he swallowed the last bit of his pride. He asked for a meeting with the hospital's chief physician. Maybe if I admit to the illness, maybe the hospital will grant me an emergency loan. In the chief physician's cold office, Marcus laid out the situation without emotion, just medical facts. The chief listened with sincere sympathy. Dr. Holloway, I'm very sorry. This is shocking news. We will, of course, do everything possible to maximize your insurance coverage. But the insurance only covers $15 million and I need $150 million. Maybe the hospital can give me a loan. I don't care if you deduct it over 10 or 20 years, Marcus pleaded. None of his arrogance remained. The chief physician slowly shook his head. Dr. Holloway, we are a medical institution, not a bank. We cannot issue such a huge personal loan, even to you. We have strict regulations. The maximum assistance is what the insurance covers. This blow was stronger than Dr. Bell's diagnosis. Assets, always assets. Marcus left the office on shaky legs. He was finally backed against the wall. No friends, no colleagues, no institutions, no assets. He was alone. The following days were hell. Marcus had to take medical leave. The hospital approved it almost too quickly, as if relieved, eager to get rid of a surgeon whose hands trembled. Rumors spread instantly. His symptoms worsened. That morning when he woke up, the left side of his field of vision was slightly blurred, as if covered by a thin film. The disease was not waiting. He sat in the living room of his darkened penthouse. The curtains were drawn. Rhonda had locked herself in her room. Was Marcus crying or sleeping? He no longer knew. It didn't matter. He looked at the phone in his hand. The contacts list was long, but empty inside. He started deleting names. Maria blocked. Frederick Carson, softened John opportunist. He deleted dozens of contacts without thinking. The screen was nearly empty. Only a few Penniles relatives from his hometown remained. And then his fingers stopped at the letter M, Maria. The name hung on the screen. Maria Lance, Aisha's friend. The only person who might know where Aisha Baker was now. The same ordinary ex-wife he had abandoned because she wasn't on his level. A suffocating wave of shame washed over Marcus' face. To call Maria meant sinking to the lowest low. It meant admitting complete failure. But on the other hand, Aisha was the only person in his life who had ever given him everything without conditions. He remembered her last words in the restaurant. You will both regret this. And the regret had arrived, not as remorse, but as a sentence, blindness and paralysis. He stared at Maria's name on the screen. His hand trembled from illness and fear. He had to do it. He had no choice. All the confidence with which he had once humiliated Asa was now as small as a grain of dust. For almost an hour, he stared at the screen, unable to press the call button. Every time he raised his finger, he heard his own voice and Rhonda's cynical laugh in his head. "You're not on my level anymore." Hot shame burned his throat. Calling Maria meant raising the white flag. It meant admitting that the ordinary woman was his last hope. While he hesitated, his left eye twitched again, and the shadow at the edge of his vision grew darker. The fear of going blind was stronger than his pride. He took a deep breath and swallowed his pride completely. He pressed the call button. One ring, 2, 3. Just as he thought Maria wouldn't answer, the call connected. There was no greeting, only silence. "Hi," Marcus croaked. "Hi, Maria." A disdainful breath was the reply. Well, the esteemed Dr. Holloway finally kept my number." Her voice was cutting, surprising. "Maria, I'm sorry it's so late." "I'm sorry." She laughed, but the laugh was not kind. "It's been a year since you threw my friend out like trash, and now you call to say I'm sorry. Isn't that a little late?" "No, it's not about that." Marcus wiped the sweat from his brow. "I wanted to know how Aisha is." Maria's laughter instantly vanished. Silence fell, sharp as a razor. "What did you say?" Her voice became so dangerous that a chill ran down Marcus' spine. "How is Aisha? After a year of not caring whether she was alive or dead, you actually dare to ask." "Please, Maria, I'm begging you." His voice cracked. "I need to talk to her. It's a matter of life and death." "Life and death?" She scoffed scornfully. "What happened? Did you run out of money? Should I send you more cash for another medical specialty?" Oh, I get it. You're sick." He couldn't answer. The words hit their mark. "I knew it." Maria shouted. "I knew it. You're in trouble." "Yes, you and your mother were always parasites. Just take. You thought Aisha was your ATM. Maria, please just listen." "I don't want to listen." She interrupted sharply. "Listen, Marcus. Aisha is happy. She rebuilt her life from the ruins you created, and she's forgotten about parasites like you and your mother. Don't you dare bother her again. Or me." The connection ended instantly. Marcus stared at the dark screen in shock. "Maria, please wait." He tried to call back, but the line immediately went busy. She had blocked him. He threw the phone onto the sofa and paced the dark living room, unable to find peace. Maria was the only thread to Aisha, and that thread had just been cut. Rhonda came out of her room, eyes swollen. "What happened, Marcus? Did you get a loan?" "Shut up, Mom." He exploded. "This is your fault, too. If you hadn't pressured me, maybe Aisha would have forgiven me." "My fault?" Rhonda flared up. "You wanted this. You said you were ashamed of her." Arguing was pointless. Marcus grabbed his phone again. He couldn't call, but he could text. His fingers trembled from illness and desperation. He typed, "Maria, you have every right to hate me. I deserve it. But please, this is a matter of life and death." He pressed send. There was almost no hope. But he had nothing else left. An hour later, a notification appeared. A message from Maria. Marcus's heart leaped. He opened it. It contained no address, no number, no help. It simply read, "Do you really think Aisha is still the same? That ordinary woman who could be crushed at any moment? Do you think she'll weep for you just because you got sick?" Marcus sank to his knees. But then another message came. "Today's Aisha is too busy running the Aisha Baker Foundation to remember the trash from the past. If you need help, find it yourself. Don't be a coward." One word burned itself into his consciousness. Foundation. Aisha had started a foundation. The woman he called ordinary. This was a lie, a trap, a new humiliation. With shaking hands, he lunged toward his laptop. His left eye was so blurry he had to press close to the screen to see the text. He opened the search bar and slowly typed Aisha Baker Foundation. The first result made him freeze. It wasn't a blog or a random page. It was a professionally designed website, the Aisha Baker Foundation. Marcus' heart almost stopped. He clicked. The homepage was stark and elegant. At the top was a photo of Aisha, but it wasn't the Aisha he remembered. The woman in the photo wore a perfectly tailored navy blazer with a short, sharp bob. She stood in front of a modern building, smiling with restraint and confidence. Behind her, a large silver plaque read, "The Aisha Baker Foundation, Empowering Futures." Period. Marcus scrolled down with a trembling hand. He read, "Founded by Aisha Baker, author of the best-selling memoir Rising from the Ashes, a bestseller. When did Aisha write a book?" He scrolled further and saw the section Our Programs. And one line hit his heart like an ice knife. The Beacon Program, full scholarships and emergency surgery funding for medical students from underserved communities. The laptop nearly slipped from his grip. His throat tightened. This couldn't be. It was a nightmare. His ex-wife, whom he had abandoned for not being on his level, had founded a massive organization dedicated entirely to funding medical education and emergency surgeries. The irony was cruel, direct, and merciless. He frantically searched for news. Dozens of articles flashed before his eyes, interviews in business magazines, appearances on morning shows. Aisha's face was everywhere. Aisha Baker turns pain into real impact. With the millions of dollars earned from her royalties, the Baker Foundation is training a new generation of doctors. Marcus stared at the screen, then at the pile of overdue bills on the table. He clutched his left eye. It was throbbing, narrowing, barely seeing. Maria was right. Today's Aisha was unreachable. She held the key to all his problems, and she was the person he had hurt the most. The cold blue glow of the monitor illuminated the dark penthouse living room. The image of the confident Aisha on the Foundation website hit him harder than Dr. Bell's diagnosis. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat motionless. In one hand his MRI results, the other hand trembled uncontrollably. His left eye was burning and almost gone. The disease was advancing without mercy. The irony was perfect, cruel, precise. The woman he had abandoned as not on his level had become the only person whose mission was to help sick people like him. In her room, Rhonda was no longer crying. She just sat in silence. The shock was so strong she couldn't process it. Her elite circle had completely turned its back on her. The bank had blocked her supplemental credit cards. She was in the same trap as her son. Marcus knew there was no other choice. Shame, pride, arrogance had all lost meaning. If he didn't act, he would go blind and be paralyzed. He had to see Aisha. He had to crush the last fragment of his pride. And then the first problem arose. He didn't have a single dollar in cash. All his credit cards had been blocked by the bank due to exceeding the limit. He looked at the keys to the Mercedes. Useless. The leasing company controlled everything. His gaze fell on the luxurious watch on his wrist, the only real asset, though it too was bought on an installment plan. He took it off. "Damn it," he whispered, throwing a jacket over his pajamas. He rushed out of the apartment. He drove to a pawn shop near the market, a place he would have despised before. Dr. Holloway stood in line behind women, turning in cheap jewelry. The watch was valued humiliatingly low, but the money was enough for a round-trip taxi ride to the Foundation's address and the cheapest possible meal. He chose the most basic option, a regular cab. The ride to Midtown Manhattan, where the Aisha Baker Foundation headquarters was located, felt like a journey to his own execution. Used to driving his Mercedes with arrogance, he now sat in the back of a small car smelling of cheap air freshener. He looked out the window at the skyscrapers that just a year ago felt like his territory. The taxi stopped in front of a huge glass building. Marble floors shone under the lights, and the revolving doors reflected the morning sun. A large silver plaque gleamed above the entrance. The Aisha Baker Foundation. Marcus paid with his remaining money and stood on the sidewalk shaking. Everything was real, not just a website. A real small empire. He straightened his crumpled jacket and felt like a pauper. With heavy steps, he pushed open the glass doors. The lobby was nothing like he imagined. It wasn't a small non-profit office. It resembled the lobby of a five-star hotel, elegant, professional, and full of energy. Several interns in perfectly pressed uniforms, likely participants in the Beacon program, hurried past with stacks of documents. Large photos adorned the walls. Aisha shaking hands with the university president. Aisha opening a community center in the south. Aisha smiling, surrounded by medical students who looked up to her with admiration. Marcus' heart constricted. All of this had been built by Aisha on the pain he had inflicted. He walked up to the reception desk, a massive mahogany counter. The young administrator greeted him immediately. "Good morning. How may I help you? Do you have an appointment?" Marcus's throat caught. "I need to see Aisha Baker. It's an emergency, a matter of life and death." The administrator maintained a professional smile, solid as armor. "I'm very sorry, but without an appointment, I cannot interrupt her meetings. If you wish, I can leave a message for her. I told you it's a matter of life and death." He burst out desperate. His hands were shaking so badly he hid them in his pockets. Several employees and visitors turned around. The administrator nervously swallowed. Her hand reached for the phone. "I'll call security." "What's the commotion?" A deep, calm, familiar voice asked from the private elevator. Marcus froze. He knew that voice. He slowly turned. Standing before him in a perfectly tailored gray suit was attorney Kenneth Markham, Aisha's lawyer. His expression was calm, but the gaze behind his glasses was sharper than ever. He no longer looked like the humble lawyer defending a Now he resembled a high-ranking corporate attorney. Attorney Markham examined Marcus, not surprised, just coldly observing. He walked closer. "Marcus Holloway, I didn't expect to see you again." "Certainly not here." Marcus swallowed, his pride mixed with sticky fear. "Ah, Kenneth Markham, you still remember me?" The attorney smiled faintly. "I never forget a potential client who could have brought me $50 million, and the one who let that opportunity slip away." He glanced at the administrator. "It's fine, Lena. I'll handle him." He gestured for Marcus to follow him to a more secluded area, a waiting room with leather sofas. Marcus sat on the very edge, his body tense. The attorney sat opposite, crossed his leg, and said, "What brings you here after more than a year? Are you here to say you've changed your mind about that $50 million and are ready to pay it now?" "No," Marcus quickly interrupted. "It's not about that. I'm sick. Seriously sick." "I know," the attorney replied coldly. Marcus's eyes widened. "How? How did you know?" "Maria Lance, Aisha Baker's friend, called her last night after receiving your message. She told Aisha everything about the transplant and the need to raise $150 million. Marcus froze. So Maria told her everything. Aisha knew he was coming. Everything was ready. He felt like a cornered rat. "Then where is Aisha?" he whispered. "She shall help. She cares." The attorney didn't answer. He looked at Marcus with an impenetrable expression, then picked up a thick, glossy brochure from the coffee table and silently slid it over. It was the official brochure for the Aisha Baker Foundation. With a trembling hand, Marcus opened it. On the second page was the foundation's mission and vision. On the third, its main program, the Beacon program, full funding and emergency surgery for the best medical students and young professionals. It was all clear, cold, undeniable. Marcus looked up, his eyes filled with despair. "Tell me, this program means Aisha will help me, right?" Attorney Kenneth Markham leaned back on the sofa. He stared at Marcus for a long time before speaking in a calm, icy voice. "That's correct. Aisha created this organization to help people, but the program has a procedure." "What procedure?" "I'll do anything. Everything that's required." The attorney smiled faintly. "Good. Then go back to the reception desk." "Why?" Marcus asked, confused. "To pick up the form," the attorney replied. The application form for medical aid recipients. You must fill it out completely and attach a certificate of low income issued by the local Department of Social Services. A list of your debts, the official diagnosis from Dr. Bell, and of course, a letter of recommendation. After that, our team will assess whether you meet the requirements. Marcus froze. A certificate of low income. Dr. Marcus Holloway, the star surgeon, had to go to a government office and ask for a poverty certificate. Marcus Holloway, the attorney, continued, "You didn't come here as an ex-husband expecting compassion. You came as an applicant, a petitioner, the same as the dozens of people who come here every day. Now go and get the form." Marcus stumbled out of the Aisha Baker Foundation lobby. His body felt heavy and empty, as if his soul had been left behind. In his hands, he held the brochure in several pages of the application. The pages were as heavy as Dr. Bell's diagnosis. Application for medical aid. Certificate of low income issued by the Department of Social Services. The words danced before his eyes, blurring more and more. Yes, Dr. Holloway, whose photo once graced the hospital's internal magazine, now had to beg for a certificate of poverty. It was a humiliation he never could have imagined. Attorney Markham didn't even escort him out. He simply allowed him to leave alone under the gaze of the young employees who had seen him enter with the attorney and now saw him exit pale and shaken. When he returned to the penthouse, once a symbol of success, now a luxurious prison, Rhonda met him right at the entrance. "What happened, Marcus? Did you see Aisha? She said she would help. She does care, right?" Marcus didn't answer. He walked to the dining table and threw down the form. "Read it," he whispered. Rhonda grabbed the papers. Her eyes widened when she saw the document's title. "What is this? Why do you have to fill out a form? She's your ex-wife." Then her gaze fell on the requirement to attach a certificate of low income issued by the Department of Social Services. Her voice became sharp. "Aisha's gone mad. She wants to humiliate us, to make us beg her. She's already achieved her goal." "Mom!" Marcus screamed. His voice cracked. He punched the wall, but his hand trembled so violently the impact barely registered. "She made me poor. Do you think I have a choice? Do you want me to go blind? Do you want to watch me sit in a wheelchair in this penthouse that the bank will seize next month?" Rhonda fell silent, white as a sheet. Reality crushed her without mercy. "Get your purse, Mom," Marcus said coldly. "We're going to the Department of Social Services right now." "But son, it's shameful," she whispered. "What shames you more? Begging for help or having the sheriff evict you from the penthouse in front of all your friends?" Rhonda couldn't answer. She dressed with trembling hands, putting on huge sunglasses and a mask, trying to hide her face. This trip became the most humiliating moment of their lives. They couldn't use the Mercedes. The payments were overdue. So they called a taxi, which dropped them right at the peeling door of the municipal office. As soon as they entered, all eyes turned. Employees constantly typing on keyboards, visitors waiting in line. Everything looked like a cruel caricature of a nightmare. Rhonda clutching her fake designer bag and Dr. Holloway, once known for his brilliant career, now sat on old cracked orange plastic chairs. "Hey, isn't that Dr. Holloway, the one who lives in the penthouse?" one employee whispered. "What's he doing here? This is the social aid window." Marcus lowered his eyes, hiding his shaking hands on his lap. Rhonda pretended to be busy with her phone, which was turned off. When their turn came, Marcus took a heavy step toward the window. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" The employee asked. "I want to request a certificate of low income," Marcus said quietly. The worker raised an eyebrow in surprise. "For whom?" "For me, Marcus Holloway." The employee stared at Marcus for a long time, as if he didn't believe his eyes. "I'm sorry. Are you Dr. Holloway? The one who lives in the penthouse? You just don't look like him at all." Marcus broke down. "I'm sick. I'm seriously ill. I need surgery that costs $50 million. I'm not working anymore. I'm ruined. I have no money. Now, just give me the form. A suffocating silence fell over the municipal office. Rhonda almost collapsed from shame. After a humiliatingly long procedure full of stares and whispers, the certificate of low income finally rested in his hands. The official seal burned his palm like a brand. That same night, he sat under a dim lamp, filling out the application for the Aisha Baker Foundation. Page after page, he documented everything he had run from before. Applicant name, Marcus Holloway. Occupation, surgeon, not practicing. He reached the debt section and began to write, swallowing his humiliation. Mortgage for penthouse, Hudson Tower, $90 million, $90 million. Auto loan for E-Class, $15 million, $15 million. Bank, a credit card, $2,700,000, $2,700,000. Bank B, credit card, $1,600,000, $1,600,000. Bank C loan, $1 million, $1 million, total $110 million, $110 million. In the assets section, he wrote one word, none. He attached the certificate, letters from creditors, and Dr. Nicholas Bell's diagnosis. It was the perfect dossier of his complete collapse. In the morning, he returned to the foundation. He looked worse than before. Red eyes, crumpled clothes, unshaven. He handed the documents to the receptionist, Olga, and heard a calm, "Thank you. Your documents have been submitted. Please have a seat." Marcus waited for 1 hour, then a second, a third. Smiling medical students passed by, young people who had likely already received Aisha support. Finally, attorney Kenneth Markham emerged from the elevator. "Marcus Holloway, Aisha Baker is ready to see you," he said. Marcus' breath and thoughts froze. He followed Markham as if going to an execution. They took the private elevator to the very top floor. The doors opened directly into a spacious office with glass walls and a panoramic view of the city. Aisha Baker sat behind a mahogany desk. Marcus froze. Aisha looked up and faced him calmly, coldly, distantly. "Have a seat, Marcus," she said in a level official tone. He sat, feeling less like a petitioner and more like an accused. Markham stood in the corner, watching silently. On the desk lay his MRI, Dr. Bell's conclusion, and the thick application he had submitted that morning. Aisha began emotionlessly. "We have reviewed your application. Dr. Bell's diagnosis confirms the disease is progressing rapidly. We also verified the estimate from the clinic in Singapore. The procedure cost is $150 million. She flipped a page. "And in 1 year, you accumulated over $130 million in personal debt. That's impressive." Marcus's ears burned. "Aisha, I know. I made a mistake." Aisha slightly raised her hand, a small gesture, and he immediately fell silent. "Marcus, I'm not here to hear your remorse. That's your personal life. It has no bearing on the foundation's work." He quietly asked, "Then why am I here?" Aisha didn't blink. "To discuss a business matter, the Aisha Baker Foundation is a legal structure. If we invest $150 million in your surgery and another $110 million to clear your debts, that is a huge investment. Any investment requires analysis to determine if the asset is worth the cost." A cold dread settled in Marcus's chest. "Asset? You call me an asset?" "Of course," Aisha replied, just as coldly. "You are a trained surgeon. You possess skills that were once invested in with 7 years of my life. It would be wasteful to allow you to go blind or become paralyzed, but your track record shows you are incapable of managing what is invested in you." Marcus lowered his head. He couldn't say anything. "Aisha, please." "You're rejecting me," he whispered, barely holding it together. She watched him silently for a few seconds. "No, your application is approved." Marcus exhaled convulsively and almost cried from relief. "Thank you, Aisha. Truly, I swear I'm not finished. She interrupted sharply. The Aisha Baker Foundation will pay for your surgery in Singapore in full, and we will clear all your debts. Marcus blinked, unable to believe what he was hearing. You'll cover even the car and the mortgage? Correct. Aisha confirmed. I don't want debt collectors distracting our asset during recovery. Aisha, I don't even know what to say. Don't say anything. This is not a gift, not charity, and not sympathy. Her voice became harder. It's a contract. Aisha stood up and walked to the panoramic window. The city's skyline shimmered behind her. When she turned around, her eyes were hard as glass. The Aisha Baker Foundation is investing a total of $260 million in you. Once you recover, you will no longer be an independent physician. You will become an asset of the foundation. Marcus stopped breathing. Attorney Kenneth Markham stepped closer and placed a thick leather folder on the desk. Read it, he said evenly. This is your employment contract. Marcus's hands shook as he opened the folder. It wasn't pages. It was dozens of pages filled with clauses. Debt transfer agreement, exclusive employment terms, obligations, and penalties. Aisha explained in a cold, businesslike tone. First, the foundation will transfer $260 million within 24 hours, $150 million for the surgery, and $110 million to pay off the mortgage, the car loan, and all credit cards. Second, all assets related to those debts, the Hudson Tower penthouse and the Mercedes E-Class, will be transferred to the foundation. Markham's team will execute the eviction tomorrow morning. You and your mother have until this evening to pack your things. Eviction? Where am I supposed to live? Marcus whispered. Third, the foundation will provide you with basic housing for the duration of the contract. A small room in the ST Serial Clinic's staff quarters. Fourth, you will work exclusively for the foundation. The standard salary for a physician of your qualification at our clinics is $400,000 per month. After deducting the value of the seized assets, you still owe the foundation $150 million. Therefore, your contract term will be 32 years. 32 years. Marcus's legs buckled. It sounded like a life sentence. If you perform exceptionally well, Aisha added, the foundation has an early release program for outstanding assets. If you prove yourself in a remote region, the term can be renegotiated. Remote region? Marcus barely exhaled. Did you really think I'd send you to a private clinic in the city? Aisha smiled faintly. You'll be assigned to a small clinic in a rural town 8 hours from here. Marcus closed his eyes. There was no choice. Either sign the 32-year contract in the middle of nowhere, or go blind, be paralyzed, and drown in debt. I'll sign, he whispered. A wise decision, Aisha replied. She handed him an expensive pen. Marcus held it with a trembling hand, partly from illness, partly from the realization that he was signing his own fate. He signed every page as Markham pointed to the lines. Excellent, Aisha said when she saw the last signature. Markham will escort you to the bank to open a trust account in the foundation's name and arrange your flight to Singapore for the day after tomorrow. Work diligently, Dr. Holloway. She returned to her computer screen, completely ignoring him, as if he no longer existed. 2 days later, Markham's team arrived at the Hudson Tower penthouse to begin the eviction. Rhonda Holloway, convinced Aisha would change her mind and let them stay, collapsed into hysterics. Aisha, you're cruel. How can you do this to us? This is our home. Where are we supposed to live? But Markham didn't flinch. He showed her the signed property transfer document. I'm sorry. The foundation paid off the mortgage in full. According to the contract signed by Marcus Holloway, the property now belongs to the foundation. You have 1 hour to pack your belongings. Rhonda, once proud and years ago contemptuous of Aisha, now hastily stuffed clothes into a suitcase while neighbors whispered in the hallway. Marcus' Mercedes E-Class was towed from the underground garage for all to see. Later, Rhonda Holloway, was driven by taxi to a tiny rented apartment on the outskirts of the city. The Aisha Baker Foundation only paid for the first 3 months. After that, she would have to survive on her own. Meanwhile, Marcus underwent the surgery in Singapore. Everything went successfully. The stem cell transplant completely rebooted his immune system. The recovery was long, quiet, and painfully lonely. There was no mother, no colleagues nearby, only a nurse hired by the foundation. After 2 months, Marcus returned home fully recovered. His hands no longer trembled, and his vision was clear again. But he was no longer a free man. A foundation employee met him at the airport, handed him a simple shirt with the foundation logo, and drove him straight to the bus station. 8 hours on a stuffy bus, then another 2 in a farmer's truck down a dirt road. Finally, they arrived at the St. Cyril Clinic, a small white building in the middle of cornfields. There was no air conditioning, only fans, no modern technology, just a stethoscope, a blood pressure cuff, and basic medications. The former star surgeon now treated coughs, stomach aches, colds, and helped deliver babies with minimal instruments. At first, Marcus raged, humiliated, cornered. But there was no choice. Every day, he worked under the strict supervision of the clinic's chief physician. In New York City, Rhonda's life completely collapsed. The foundation's support ended. She had to sell all her bags, even the fakes she had boasted about to her high society circle. The woman who had once insulted Aisha was now washing dishes in a restaurant to survive. And every time she saw Aisha on television, now a respected philanthropist, she would weep in her cramped apartment, choking on regret. Months passed. Marcus slowly adapted. For the first time in his life, he felt something he had never known: sincerity. Locals thanked him, even for the simplest help. He set a young boy's arm using only basic tools and gradually realized that being a doctor wasn't about status or luxury. One afternoon, a helicopter landed in the field, stunning everyone. Marcus, bandaging a farmer's wound, looked up. Aisha Baker stepped out of the helicopter, accompanied by attorney Kenneth Markham. They had arrived for a scheduled inspection. In a white linen shirt, Aisha walked into the clinic. She saw Marcus, tanned and sweaty, in a foundation emblazed shirt. She didn't greet him personally. She reviewed invoices, reports, and patient logs. She stopped next to him as he comforted a crying toddler, scared of a shot. The hand that had once trembled from illness and arrogance was now steady and warm. Their eyes met for a second. Marcus lowered his head. "Good afternoon, Aisha. The patient report is on the doctor's desk," he said respectfully. Aisha looked at him for a moment. There was no anger or hatred in her eyes, just the calm, professional gaze of a leader looking at an employee. "Good work, Dr. Holloway. Keep it up. You still have 3112 years to go." She turned and returned to the helicopter. Marcus watched her go. He sighed heavily, feeling the familiar weight in his chest. He finally understood. Aisha was in the sky and he was on the ground, and she was the one who won. She didn't just take back what was hers. She didn't just get revenge. She rebuilt both her life and his, transforming Marcus from an arrogant husband into a doctor who finally understood his true calling. Life had given him the harshest lesson. Arrogance is a debt with the highest interest. It always comes due when you least expect it, and sincerity is always returned many times over. If this story touched your heart, support us by liking and subscribing to the channel.